I have always loved the atmosphere of small, secluded villages. Gradually empty or extinct, they made me think about the slow flow of time, a flow that cannot be slowed down or stopped. In many forgotten, but still alive villages, the life and culture of the old days have been preserved. More than once, I have been to villages located dozens or even hundreds of kilometers away from large population centers. Old-timers are always happy to share their memories or legends and traditions of the area. These places have their own charm and beauty, which I try to capture. But unfortunately, photos can't compare with real landscapes, can't convey the depth of colors. By the way, I work as a photographer. When I have an opportunity to close my small photo studio and go out of town for a few days to shoot nature or the life of a remote village, I never miss it. And when my friend Genya, who inherited a house in a remote village from a very distant relative, offered me to accompany him on a trip, I agreed. Genya knew about my love for such godforsaken villages and called me partly because of this, and partly out of boredom. I don't want to go alone to such a remote place, he explained. It would take many hours to drive. Genya sat behind the wheel, and I sat in the back seat, staring out the window. Beautiful views flashed outside the window, which I wanted to capture, but my childhood friend categorically refused to stop even for a minute. Pash, no offense, but with all your, I'll take a quick picture, and then we'll go further. We'll get there only by the end of next year, not earlier. He doesn't understand anything. Toward the end of the road, after leaving a not very busy highway, we shook on bumps and grassy bumps for an hour. We entered the village after the cool twilight had descended. The house we needed was on the outskirts, so we had no trouble finding it. We took our things inside, hastily wiped off the dust, which, in the stifling air heated by the heat of the day, made us sneeze and cough constantly, and swept the floors. We cooked a light snack and, tired after the long journey, went to bed. We woke up early and had a surprisingly good night's sleep. Someone was banging on our door, threatening to call the police and pounding on the unreliable wooden door with such force that the house seemed to collapse. Did we make a mistake in the dark? Genya jumped up and, yawning loudly, went into the hall to meet the unexpected guest. I followed him. "Who are you? Why did you get into Prokhorov's house?" An old man armed with a rake, whose gray beard went down almost to his waist, looked at us indignantly. "I am his distant relative. I got a letter that he left me a house as an inheritance. I came to see it with a friend," Genya explained. "That's how it is." The old man put down the rake and extended his wiry hand to us. "My name is Kuzma Ilyich." We introduced ourselves and shook hands. The old man told us a little about the village, the former owner of the house, and suggested that we come to visit him in the evening. After our guest left, we had breakfast and started to put the house in order. At night, we could not adequately assess the level of neglect of Genya's house. In the rooms that we were too lazy to look yesterday, the dust was a carpet, and completely faded wallpaper in fragile strips peeled off the walls. Apparently, the former owner had rarely visited them himself. I found a broom in the hay and handed it to my friend. "You take this room and I'll take the one next door." Genya, who was planning to spend the weekend doing nothing, gritted his teeth and snatched the broom from me. "Let's get this over with quickly. I don't want to deal with it until I leave," he muttered. We worked until the pale twilight, but at least we completely eliminated the dust, mold and dirt that reigned in the house. Genya plunged into work, which I did not expect from my not the most industrious friend. "But tomorrow we have the whole day at our disposal," he said for the 100th time as we walked down the river. For some reason, the water in the village was given only at certain hours, and we had to rinse the rags in buckets. "Let's go to the field or the forest and take pictures." "That's the only reason you agreed to come with me." "Yes, it is." The river was slow, wide, and flowed about 20 meters from the outskirts of the village. "Look!" Genya waved his hand in the direction of the pier, near which a boat was gently rocking. If we had known that we could fish here, we would have prepared ourselves. I know how we would have prepared. I grinned, emphasizing the word we. Genya would have found a lot of excuses and dumped all the work on me. And he'd say that since he was taking me along, giving me such a great honor as a photographer, I had to work it off somehow. He let my chuckle pass and continued to talk about the delights of fishing. Maybe there are no fish here at all. I put in my 5 kopecks when his chatter began to hurt my ears. We'll ask my grandfather, he said, and we approached the freshly painted gate. His plot of land was neat and tidy. The house was neat and tidy. It was recently repaired, and the nearby vegetable garden was thoroughly weeded. The slender lines of green stretching to the sky and the smooth rectangular beds were pleasing to the eye. By the wooden, seemingly unreliable porch, covered with a thin layer of soil from the vegetable garden, a small dog sat on a chain. A typical village dog, which, contrary to my expectations, did not attack us strangers with a deafening, nasty, ear-splitting bark in order to chase us away from their territory, but happily wagged its tail and with a cheerful gleam in its eyes was raring to meet the strangers. "Hello, dear guests." The landlady came out on the porch. "Don't be afraid of the bug. I warned her about your arrival. She's smart. She understands everything. She knows who is good and who is not." Kuzma Ilyich stepped out of the darkness of the unlit hay. "This is my wife, Natalia Alexeyevna." We introduced ourselves and, having stroked on the fluffy sides of the playful dog, whose tail was twirling, went into the house. The interior of the house revived in my memory the pictures of rural life that I had seen in school textbooks. The atmosphere of peaceful rural life, where time seemed to stand still and was not in a hurry to accept all the novelties of progress, brought a strange sense of longing for times long past, of which I knew from books and old black and white movies. A puffing samovar, pots with several kinds of jam, appetizing pies fresh from the oven and aromatic herbal tea were already waiting for us on the table. Our hosts asked us about city life. Genya found out about his relative, who was his great-uncle or something more distant. The abundance of names made me dizzy, and soon I was completely confused about who was who. Judging by the confused look of my friend, he too understood little from the lengthy explanations of our new acquaintance. "By the way," Genya interrupted Kuzma Ilyich inappropriately, "is it possible to fish here?" "You can, why not?" After a short pause answered the old man, not the least offended that he was unceremoniously interrupted. Sighed my friend. "Next time we'll take fishing rods." "Of course, take them," smiled the owner. "You can take the boat at the dock. We don't have any others. There's only one left for everyone. But few people use it. All the young people have left." There was a depressing pause. Kuzma Ilyich became visibly sad, apparently immersed in memories. "Well, we should probably go." I got up from the table. "Thank you very much for the treat." "You're welcome. Come in again," Natalia Alexeyevna fussed. Kuzma Ilyich decided to see us off. We walked in silence for the most part. Genya felt uncomfortable in the evening silence. There were crickets and dogs running somewhere in the field. "Is there a village on the other bank? Or just a field?" he asked, trying to dilute the silence somehow. The old man slowed down, frowned, and looked at us sternly. After a moment's silence, he said, "There was once a village there long ago, but it's gone. It's a bad place, guys. Don't go there. Those who have been there and come back say that evil has settled there." "Why did she disappear?" Genya persisted. "From the evil of people," the old man answered dryly, putting an end to this conversation. We went behind the creaking gate and wished Kuzma Ilyich good night and went into the house. "Jeanne, let's go to the other shore tomorrow," I said as soon as the door closed behind us. "Why? Grandfather told us not to go there. Imagine the pictures you can take there." Hearing that there was a village there, my imagination immediately drew melancholy pictures of abandoned decades ago, dilapidated wooden huts, overgrown paths overgrown with spicy sedge, whose outlines can no longer be seen. A dead village where once, undoubtedly, there was life. A place where people had left because of some prejudice. It's probably just overgrown. Grandfather said that village had ceased to exist a long time ago. He said it was a bad place. Don't tell me you believe in these fairy tales. I smiled. I have not fallen for such warnings since elementary school. But something must have happened there if the village was abandoned. Someone made up a story, and the others caught it, got scared, and left. Well, all right, gave up Genya. Let's go. We should leave at dawn so we don't run into any locals. The alarm clock rang at 5 in the morning. With its deafening melody, a pinkish warm light spilled into the room. Dust particles swirled in a chaotic dance in the skinny streaks of light shining through the loose curtains. Birds chirped and bumblebees buzzed busily outside the window as they fiddled with the unpretentious flowers that had once been neat decorations in the broken flower beds beneath the windows. I rose easily and cheerfully from the uncomfortable, low couch. The forthcoming journey to the other shore, where barely preserved huts were waiting for me, or maybe not preserved at all, but I didn't want to think about it at all, gave me strength, awakened in me the thirst for adventure that had been dormant in me since childhood. And Junka had to be lifted almost with a fight, but in the end, he gave in and, yawning widely, with a huge and undisguised reluctance, went to the kitchen. After breakfast, we packed our backpacks. Water, sandwiches, a penknife. I hung my camera on my neck as the most valuable thing. Listen, why don't we just forget about this village? Take pictures of ours. Genya tried to dissuade me. Tell me you're too lazy to come with me. I rolled my eyes. I'm not lazy. I just have a bad feeling about it. I see. Having given up, Genya took the backpack and we went to the river. We loaded into the boat, took the oars. The current, slow and smooth, allowed us to reach the opposite shore without much difficulty. Fine ripples on the waterbed played with the glare of the sun, dark green reeds, in which a few silent, inconspicuous birds swarmed, swayed and rustled languidly. Near the shore, in the river clay, thick nasty leeches and large, as big as a bottle cap, floating beetles were moving. To my surprise, there was a barely visible path in the lush, knee-high grass. Did someone really live here? Or does someone from the other side of the river visit? It didn't matter. Just thinking about how many beautiful photos could be taken here made me willing to turn a blind eye to any oddity. Soon the path disappeared into a stunted field of rye or wheat. The stunted ears clung to the dry ground. Are there ears in June already? I flinched at my friend's unexpected question. I don't know, I mumbled. Maybe it's a fast-growing variety. I think that's where we're going. Spreading with my hands faded, covered with black fungus, diseased stems, I moved forward. Genya followed me. I walked straight ahead, hoping that soon the field would end and we would finally reach the abandoned village. We walked for quite a long time. A large, decent-looking village spread out in front of us. Neat houses stood ahead, as if they had been built yesterday, and smoke spiraled blackly from the stovepipes. It was strange that we couldn't see it from the other side of the river. Or were we too far away? This doesn't look like a long-dead village, I said quietly. Maybe we got lost and came to the wrong village. Let's ask the locals. We walked through the village, but we didn't see a single living soul. No people, no animals. Not even a dog barked. Genya looked around. They must have all gone away. Then where did the smoke come from? Somebody had flooded the stoves. And then a frightening, chilling thought struck my brain. There was an oppressive, absolutely dead silence all around. No human voices, no cattle, no birds chirping, not even the rustling of grass or the half-fallen crowns of crooked trees. Not a sound at all. Genya became visibly alarmed. His fear was transmitted to me. An anxiety bordering on panic was building up inside. Something was wrong, and it wasn't just the absence of sound. It was the village itself. the perfectly smooth road, without the potholes and brown puddles present on any beaten village road. Everything around us seemed unnatural, like in a dream. Everything seemed ordinary. You don't understand what is going wrong, but you feel in your soul that something terrible and evil is pulling its paws towards you. Listen, Pash, I don't know about you, but I want to get out of here as soon as possible. Me too. The immaculate village was frightening. I've never been so scared in my life. I wished I'd listened to the old man and come here. To hell with the pictures, as long as I could get out of here without adventure. But we didn't. We turned around, intending to get the hell out of here, and immediately jumped on the spot. In front of us stood a young girl dressed in a white dress decorated with colorful floral ornaments. Her long red braid twisted like a snake down her straight back. Her eyes, the color of cornflowers, looked at us inquisitively, and her thin, bloodshot lips stretched in a good-natured smile. A scattering of freckles gave the girl's pretty face a touch of naivete. Milky white skin somehow led me to believe that the mysterious stranger rarely left her dwelling. "Good afternoon, young people. Where are you going?" In a gentle, melodious voice that enveloped me, made me let go of all worries. The girl cooed and smiled affectionately. "Hello. We've lost our way a little. We're gonna go back." Jenya babbled and took a step back. "Why leave so soon? You've only just arrived." The girl continued to smile and took a few steps in our direction. "No, thank you. We have to go." My friend was seized by a faint shiver. "Jen, what's with you?" I asked in a whisper, backing up with him. "Look at her legs." I shifted my gaze from the stranger's disarming smile to the hem of her dress and was stunned. I couldn't move. My feet felt like they were stuck in a marshy mire. Instead of cute shoes or delicate bare feet, I saw ugly, mud-covered and broken birds' feet. Three-toed, each toe topped with a curved, sharp claw. "Stay with me. I'm so lonely here," she said, looking at us hopefully. "We'd be glad to, but there's no time, we have to go," I said with difficulty, pulling myself together and taking away the trembling in my voice. Suddenly, Jenya threw his backpack off his shoulder and threw it at the girl. She, not expecting such a meanness, barely had time to cover her face and, shrieking, fell on the dried grass. "Run!" Jenya pulled me to the exit of the village. To our horror, the doors of the houses flew open and half-decomposed dead people poured out. Men, women, decrepit old men, and small children. Growling dogs crawled out from under the porches. The appearance of the village was changing. Beautiful houses were deteriorating right before our eyes. Roofs were failing, log walls were covered with rotten spots that gradually turned into holes. Window panes were scattered with dust. The well-maintained plots were overgrown with weeds. Apple trees dried up and died. The heads of cows, horses, sheep and other livestock appeared on fences. The trail was littered with the mutilated corpses of cats and poultry. The sky turned black. Leaden clouds hid the sun in a few moments. A gusty wind howled. "Stay with me. I'm so lonely," howled a girl behind us. I turned around. There was no trace of her former beauty and defenselessness. The stranger now looked less than human. Her hair was disheveled, and a bony crest had grown on her back, tearing the fabric of her clothes. Her arms and legs were animal-like, and her face was contorted in an ugly grimace of rage. A thin trickle of saliva mixed with blood dripped from a mouth full of sharp teeth. "Why are you standing up?" Jenya tugged at my sleeve, pulling me away from the unpleasant sight. We broke through the still sparse crowd of dead and sprinted as fast as we could toward the field. We ran at random, scratching our faces and fingers against the ears. The shrieks and clatter of the pursuers behind us gave us strength. Soon we came ashore. The boat was untied and rocking a few meters from the shore. We were ready to swim to the other shore. Adrenaline was boiling in us. It seemed that we would run tirelessly to the end of the world, if only the howling creatures could not reach us. We reached the boat. The oars were inside. We rowed as hard as we could, moving quickly away from the cursed place. Where we had stood a few minutes earlier, a creature pretending to be a girl was writhing on all fours in the sand and mud. Behind it, the inhabitants of the lost village were walking back and forth, falling and stumbling over small bumps. The wind carried their stench to us. The smell of dead meat made my stomach turn inside out. Kuzma Ilyich was waiting for us at the dock. Sweaty and scared to death, with trembling knees, we fell out of the boat. My camera was drowned, and I threw off my rucksack while running across the field. Alive! Well done. The villagers thought you were dead. But here you are, alive. We rejoiced with him. I made a vow to always heed the advice of my elders, no matter how ridiculous they seemed to me. Grandpa, what's going on out there? Genya, covered with sand and seaweed, not without the old man's help, rose to his feet. You guys should have listened. Young people are getting quite wild nowadays. They don't trust the advice of knowledgeable people. Let's not talk about it now. Kuzma Ilyich calmed us on the way to Zenon's house. He was the closest. While we were shaking from the cold and changing clothes, the old man was managing the kitchen. We sat at the table, clutching hot cups with our palms. So what happened to that village? Genya repeated the question he had asked at the river, which the old man had left unanswered. It happened a long time ago, guys. I was a boy who walked under the table then. He sighed, remembering. It was a nice village, but some of its inhabitants were not. Mariana lived there, a girl like they describe in fairy tales, a beauty. And Grigory, a handsome man, went to her to woo her, and all the girls were tailing him except Mariana. He was handsome, proud, but idle. His father was a peddler. He knew no need for money himself, but he never denied his only son anything. Any girl was ready to go into fire or water for him, but Mariana didn't like him. She had a fiancée, Lyanka. He was oblique. The girls avoided him, but Mariana loved him madly. They were getting married. Grigory did not want to tolerate the competitor, used to that all the desired always gets. He conspired scoundrels like him, and on a dark night Lyonia was caught and stabbed, and the body was buried in the woods. When Mariana found out that her beloved had disappeared, she locked herself up at home. She sobbed days and nights and withered away. Soon local women went berry picking and found the corpse of the unfortunate man. The whole village soon found out, but the girl decided not to say anything. They came to the murderer principal, and his father, frightened for his son, bought off everyone. He gave money to some people, new cattle to others, helped to repair the house. Everyone accepted the gifts and pretended not to know anything, and the saddened Mariana remained in ignorance. After some time, Grigory resumed his courtship with renewed vigor, but the maiden did not want to see him. One day he got drunk and, having received another refusal, told her everything. About the conspiracy, about the murder, and about the grave of her fiancé hidden in the forest. So Mariana swore then, "I'll curse everyone," she said. "All of you will answer to me for your lies." "And what then?" I asked when Kuzma Ilyich was silent. The tasty herbal tea gave my body a pleasant warmth. They said, the old man put an empty cup on the table and interlocked his fingers, that her family was witches. Mariana went into the forest and performed some kind of ritual. She was so evil that she didn't even spare small children. Within a year, all the villagers died of an obscure disease. They died, but they couldn't rest in peace. Mariana began to hunt for travelers who happened to wander by. That's all. "That's a terrible story," said my friend. "You're lucky to be alive, and as I see, you've not lost your mind. Forget what you saw and move on. Only don't meddle where you shouldn't," Kuzma Ilyich said instructively, and, having said goodbye, left. But the impressions of that terrible day did not hurry to leave our memory. All night I was tormented by nightmares. In front of my eyes every now and then appeared a beautiful pale face, which after a moment turned into a disgusting face. Genya didn't sleep a wink during the night either. In the morning, we threw our things into the trunk and hurried back to the city. We never talked about what had happened. We acted as if nothing had happened. I had almost given up photography, shooting photo shoots in my studio, and that was it. I didn't see the beauty in urban landscapes, and I didn't want to visit villages anymore. Who knows what evil might live in the neighborhood of the most ordinary-looking village?